Have you ever considered the cost of disobedience? Let's delve into the life of King Saul, Israel's first king, a tale of power, disobedience, and downfall. A tall and striking figure, Saul was chosen by God to lead Israel, marking a promising start to his reign. His selection was not random, it was divine, a clear sign of the favor he initially enjoyed. The expectations on his shoulders were immense, a beacon of hope for a nation seeking leadership and guidance. He was entrusted with the responsibility of serving God and his people with a pure heart and full obedience. This was more than a royal appointment. It was a divine mandate, a sacred trust, a covenant with God himself. But as we will soon discover, the promising start of King Saul was just the beginning of a complex and tragic narrative. As Saul's reign progressed, the cracks began to show. His impatience and disobedience led to a series of unfortunate events. Saul's first major transgression was an act of impatience. He was advised to wait for the prophet Samuel to perform the sacrifice before going to battle. But Saul, driven by fear and impatience, took matters into his own hands and performed the sacrifice himself. This was a direct violation of God's command, as only the prophet was permitted to offer sacrifices. This rash act set a pattern of disobedience that would follow Saul throughout his reign. Next came the disobedience against the divine directive concerning the Amalekites. God commanded Saul to destroy everything that belonged to them, their king, their people, and their livestock. However, Saul spared King Agag and the best of the livestock, again showing his disregard for God's commandments. His disobedience in this matter was a grave mistake, leading God to reject Saul's kingship. Saul's emotional instability was another sign of his disobedience. Rather than seeking God's guidance and wisdom, he allowed fear, jealousy, and rage to cloud his judgment. His emotional turmoil even led him to attempt to kill David, a man who was nothing but loyal to him. This emotional instability further distanced Saul from God's favor. The consequences of Saul's actions were severe. His impatience led to his first act of disobedience, setting the tone for his reign. His disregard for God's command during the battle with the Amalekites led to God's rejection of his kingship, and his emotional instability resulted in actions that further alienated him from God. These acts of disobedience set the stage for Saul's eventual downfall, a path he seemed determined to tread. As Saul's disobedience grew, so did his fear and jealousy, particularly towards young David, the future king of Israel. Consumed by his envy, Saul became a shadow of the leader he once was, his actions driven by fear and resentment. His desperation led him to a witch seeking to communicate with the dead, a clear defiance of God's laws. This act further deepened his spiritual decline, pulling him away from the path of righteousness. In the end, his life culminated in a tragic battle against the Philistines. Saul, the once mighty king of Israel, found himself cornered, with his defeat imminent. In a final act of despair, he chose to end his life, dying by his own hand on the battlefield. His reign, which began with promise, ended in a spiral of disobedience, fear, and ultimate self-destruction. His legacy was not of triumph but of tragedy, leaving a void filled by David, the shepherd boy turned king. In the end, Saul's story serves as a stark reminder of the consequences of disobedience and the importance of maintaining a pure heart and serving God. So, what can we learn from the life of King Saul? What lessons does his story offer us today? King Saul's life stands as a stark testament to the pitfalls of disobedience and spiritual degeneration. As the first king of Israel chosen directly by God, Saul had every advantage. Yet he consistently failed to uphold God's commands. He offered sacrifices without waiting for the prophet Samuel, a clear breach of divine instruction. His decision to spare the Amalekite king and the best livestock against God's explicit command revealed a worrying lack of obedience and respect for divine authority. His emotional turbulence, jealousy towards David, and resort to witchcraft for counsel only further exemplified his spiritual decline. The culmination of his disobedience eventually led to a tragic end, his death by suicide during a battle with the Philistines. Saul's life underscores the importance of obedience and maintaining a pure heart in serving God. His story serves as a potent reminder that even the chosen ones can fall if they lose sight of God's guidance and give in to their own desires. King Saul's life serves as a cautionary tale for all of us, reminding us of the cost of disobedience and the importance of maintaining a pure heart. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the life of King Saul. Remember, the choices we make today can shape our destiny tomorrow.